Alrighty. Looks like we are live on YouTube, so that's good. Unfortunately, last time I did a live, it didn't save on YouTube or Instagram when my phone died. But I am excited. Today we're going to be chatting with a friend of mine. You might know her account, budding.goddesses. We're excited to have her here. So we're just going to hang out for a minute while she comes on. Just checking. And we'll wait for a few of you to pop on in here. I have been wanting to do these sort of series for a while now, kind of like a mix of free coaching, energetic alignment mixed together. So also a chance for women to just kind of share some of their stories and experiences, to talk about them, and yeah, like I said, break down some of the challenges there. So hang on. It's like she's just getting ready here. We'll hang out for another minute. But if any of you are interested in the future of wanting to hop on here, share a little bit of your experience, do a little bit of free coaching, energetic alignment. Energetic alignment is my favorite thing in like signature sauce. There's a lot of coaches out there who do things like, mindset work and different things like that, which are very valuable tools. But when you shift the energy that you're in, everything just starts to shift. You feel better. So we naturally do this throughout our lives. So you have that really good friend who just like always gives you a pick me up whenever you're around them. That's an example of a shift in your energetic alignment. And when we find that space of feeling good, feeling alive, feeling that vigor, things are easier. We can build that momentum up and use it to navigate challenges and different things that show up in our life. And so it's a really powerful tool. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Looks like she's on here. I think if you want to just hit the button below, it will let you join. Let's see. I don't know if I can add you on my end. Here we go. I can't. Invite. Okay, let's see if this works. Hopefully it does. Yay! There we go. Awesome.
I'll mute for just a minute while I get her going.
Yeah, no worries. You're good. So this is part of the joy of what I love doing too, is just connecting in that real time, real space with women, right? I saw somebody shared a post again recently about how Christ and God always met women where they were, like in their homes with cooking or whatever they were doing. And so I love getting to have that same experience, whether it's that just raw doing life together, that it doesn't have to pause to have that community and that connection. Too, from experience, sometimes when I do groups and different things, I love having cameras on, and it's been really fun to see like the different things that people are doing. And sometimes they're like washing dishes or cooking dinner or painting or walking outside, and it brings this beautiful element of getting to be with each other in real time, in real life, even when we're not in that same way, right? So thank you for being willing to hop on here.
Thank you. I'm like, okay, she's calm. Your voice calmed her.
Awesome. I love it. Love it. So thank you for being willing to kind of hop on here and play with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. So I'd love to hear just a little bit of something that's been, a challenge recently, particularly in relationship to the church, but it can also be just regular life stuff too. I know there's been a lot of women who struggle with that. There's been a lot of stuff coming to light, bit of a roller coaster with different things happening, the general conference coming up, and even Easter sometimes can be a mixed bag for people. So I thought it would be fun to give that opportunity to just sort of share some of your experiences, what you've been through, and then also we can dive into a little bit of energetic alignment around it. So
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Cool.
So I've come a long way with this through your help, but I still find myself activated. My nervous system there are times when it's still there when something comes up. So I have more work to do. And particularly, I loved the DNA model that you shared recently because I think that's my goal. I want to get to a place where I have both the feminine and masculine within me, but right now I'm just very strongly in the feminine. And this is when it comes to just the simple thing of that it's so rare that I hear leaders of the church use the term heavenly parents, let alone saying heavenly mother.
Yeah.
And for me, it's because that signifies that it's still, it communicates to me, maybe this isn't what they're trying at all to do, but then I feel like I can't mention her. Because I do. When I'm in Relief Society and when I'm giving a talk in sacrament meeting, I use her name and I use both their names together. But I always feel like I'm maybe doing something wrong because it's not modeled by the leaders very often. It's rare.
Yeah.
And so I think there are a couple elements there. It makes me feel like maybe I'm not supposed to, even though I know if I listen to my spirit, I know it's okay and good. There's that element, and then there's the element of that I'm making it mean that they don't see or hear or care about our concerns and feelings. But I love that you're reminding us this is how it's supposed to be right now. We're in this, would you call it like a waiting period, or this period where
yeah. So for those of you who don't know what she's talking about, I did a post yesterday. You can go check it out. That has a visual. I love constructs and like creating visual aids to help represent some of these like intangible ideas or experiences that we have that just make it not feel so, what's happening? I don't know what's going on, right? Just grounds it, makes it a little more real. So the DNA model that I talked about was basically the idea that there is masculine and feminine energy. And those of you who might be new following me, I talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy. It's usually not in reference to gender, personality, sexuality, anything like that. They're representative of two different states and two different parties. And you can use masculine and feminine energies in a lot of different ways to describe patterns and processes and things that we go through. So I've been using that recently we have sort of the women in the church and the leadership in the church right now. It's a relationship dynamic that's sort of being worked on and kind of brought a lot more to light. And so sort of assigning masculine and feminine to that relationship and what does that look like. And that we've been in sort of this pattern where masculine and feminine are in relationship with one another, but each party is representing one of those energies. And we won't go into specifics of like what that represents, but just the ideas that each one of them is in one position. But in actuality, when we have a healthy energetic relationship, what we're looking for is both parties to have their own masculine and feminine counterparts, and then they sort of interweave or like twist and dance with one another. So there's this interdependency between them, but they are two full, complete, balanced individuals. And so I described yesterday and talked a lot about how we're going through this process of sort of breaking out of this current relationship because you have to create space for the second part to kind of come back in, right? And a lot of work that women in particular have been doing is defining what is this piece that feels like it's missing, that hasn't been as much in the experience. We would love to have more of that in the experience. And speaking to your question about like that struggle with the masculine and trying to navigate their experience and their perspectives, one of the interesting pieces of this is when we talk about a result that we want in the relationship, that's actually down here. So acknowledging like heavenly parents, and we're both talking about it and we're both comfortable with it, and it's like a regular part of things. That's in the like interdependent part of the relationship. We've entered a new way of interacting with one another. That's now the common ground. Before we ever get there, we first go through the separation process, and then we go through this defining process here. And what's tricky is when you're in this defining process, we often want to take, oh, I've discovered this is important to me. Now you need to start doing it right now. Rather than recognizing there's this whole process of the other party sort of having to go through their own defining experience as well, and not counteracting. And it can also go the other way of, if one party is starting to move into this pole, there can be a sense of like, there's a separation happening here. This is not good. This is breaking the relationship. This is a problem. And so there can kind of be a tug of war to like hold on to the past relationship and not step into this space. But inevitably, as this shift happens, it kind of forces that separation to occur, which then creates the space for this to start being observed. And it usually comes about by recognizing and seeing this play out more and more. So in your question of like, why don't they say this? Where is this coming from? What's been happening is you've been having a contrasting experience, which the way I talk about it is anytime we feel that negative emotion, it's a purposeful thing that happens in life to help us get greater clarity on what it is we want. So you've gotten greater clarity on, this is something that is important to me. It matters to me. I want a deeper relationship with this. And that's beautiful, right? Having that awareness, having that knowledge, that's important. And sometimes we flip it, right? And we get stuck in the absence of what we want, right? Because it's usually easier to get clear on what we want by knowing what we don't want. So even as you were talking and presenting the idea, it was coming from a space of, they don't talk about her. They don't say heavenly parents, right? And so the reason that doesn't feel good is you're in a different energy from the thing that you want. It served you because you've built up this desire and you become aware of it. And it's been a long enough journey for you that you know clearly this matters. This is important to me. So much so you started integrating it into your own life and how you show up. But it's that opposition of the state of being that you're in that makes it uncomfortable and makes it painful. And when I talk to people about this shifting the energy that you're in, it sometimes sounds like, or can come across as like dismissing or downplaying, or this isn't important, or doesn't matter, or they don't have to change, or they don't have to recognize. That's not the point. It's important to recognize that human part of the experience, but it's also important to recognize the way that we create that, the way that we're able to build that relationship is by practicing already experiencing it. From an energetic perspective, that's literally how we create it, is by being in that energy of it. But even from like a nervous system perspective, if you want to feel comfortable being able to say that and feeling like this is a regular, normal part of things, you have to train your body to feel this is okay. This is a good thing, right? So it's that shift from being in the absence of what is wanted to being in the presence of what's wanted. And the tricky thing that will again happen is we get caught on the result, right? And like, I want this end result. And it's not that end results aren't important, or we shouldn't care about them, or we don't want them to occur. Absolutely, we do, and they do matter. But the whole journey to getting there, like this process we just described to get to there, that is going to be more difficult if the whole time that's playing out, you're just in the absence of it, the absence of it, the absence of it. You're going to be feeling that the whole time. And from an energetic perspective, you're actually slowing down and pinching off the ability for that to occur, right? And for it to happen. Yeah. So that's part of what I mean when I say shifting the energy that you're operating from, okay? And again, it's tricky, especially because we've spent a lot of good time as just a general community sort of over the last couple of years of sifting and sorting and really talking about like the contrast and all the things we don't want and all the reasons why We don't want those things. And it's created this beautiful amount of clarity of like, oh, these are all the things that we do want. But now to move forward, there's this like stuck feeling that can become unbearable, right? Like I can't be around people, I can't interact, I can't think about things because every time that I do, it just activates the absence of what is wanted while my desire is so strong. And that's really going on there is the absence of what is wanted. That's just got a lot of momentum around it, which means you've practiced thinking that, you've practiced feeling that. So your body, your mind, your energy system taps into it, plugs into it really quickly anytime that comes up. You can retrain that, you can practice that so that you get into the energy of what is wanted. And then you have a whole experience. And what that does is that frees you up. It actually breaks you out of feeling stuck, of feeling powerless. That thing now doesn't have power over you. Because right now, if you watch General Conference and nobody says Heavenly Parents, there's probably going to be feelings of like resentment and frustration and anger and disappointment and disillusionment. And what does this mean, right? It's got influence over you. It's affecting how you feel. It's impacting who you are. When you can get to that place of being in the energy of what is wanted, the external is no longer the thing that you're calibrating to. You're not looking at what's happening around you. You're not letting those external things be what your state of being is. You can separate them. You can go, yep, that's what's going on in the world right now. That's where we are. That's what's happening. It's kind of like looking at your kid and it's like, oh my goodness, I cannot wait for us to be toilet trained. Like that desire is very important to me. And every time I have to deal with poop in an accident, that desire gets stronger, right? The more that I'm in the energy of the absence of toilet training, the more frustrated I'm going to be, the more angry I'm going to be, the less patient I'm going to have with my child, the more I'm going to lash out at them, the more I'm going to be like, oh, I cannot deal with this, right? When I get into the energy of aligning with what my desire is, then it's becoming, I see this as a part of the process. I can let my child have a separate experience from my own. I can then interact with them differently and the relationship dynamic changes. And that's a really big thing that I think collectively we can practice and we can be learning that can change how things progress moving forward. Because right now, I feel like there's a big pattern of the women and leadership, I think, sort of being stuck in trauma states with each other. And they're having reactions with one another. And we're sort of caught in that pattern. So we can talk more about how this affects that and helps things moving forward. But does that kind of help explain or questions? Or?
Yes. And I love that example or comparison to something like potty training that we know will happen and we have that hope of it will be here one day. My question is, do we calibrate to the result or we calibrate, we're more in the present?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, great question. So the rule with calibrating to things energetically is it's based off of how you feel. So when you feel good, you want to get more specific because that focuses the energy, builds the momentum, and adds to it. When you don't feel good, you want to go more general, and that sort of diffuses the energy so that you're not activating the unwanted state, right? So if you think about the result, and we'll use the toilet training example for a minute because it's a little less activating, but like, oh, how nice it will be if like we can go to the grocery store and I don't have to tug around diapers and I don't have to pay for diapers and we can just like stop in the bathroom instead of having to go out to the car or like deal with all of this and I'm not worrying about accidents anymore. Oh, that's motivating me to give me energy to move through the process of toilet training. Great. Keep focusing on it, hone in on it, move with it. If instead you just, every time you think about the end result, it's like, this child is never going to be toilet trained. Like, I know technically they should be able to. Every child is supposed to. Some take longer, some whatever. I'm really beginning to doubt and question that this is actually going to happen, right? Don't focus on the end result more. Go more general, right? There will be solutions. There will be ways that I can find to navigate through this experience. We'll find what works best for me and for my child. We're both supported through this process. Like, you go much more general, and that sort of lowers the resistance. So it kind of depends on where you are, and sometimes that fluctuates day to day on what's going on. So taking it back to the church example, if you're in the middle of watching General Conference and you have a lot of momentum around they're not saying heavenly parents, focusing on, well, eventually they will, and one day maybe it will change, that might feel really activating and like it's just adding more momentum to the negative space. So focusing on that end result probably is not going to help, and is why it can be useful to go more general, which is often why people will step outside, not watch General Conference, take breaks. They're looking for something to diffuse that energy that they've got a lot of momentum built up around. So it's not even, and even this happens like when people leave the church, there's a desire they have, I want to feel this way, I want to have this experience, and regular interacting or having contact with the church just keeps those old things active. So they need that space to be able to step away, to really let that energy diffuse out before being able to interact again. And that can be valuable.
Okay, yes, because that's been my experience. I like having that language for it, that I've been trying to diffuse and step away. And I was going to ask if there are other ways to diffuse that besides, my strategy has been just not to watch or not attend, not to participate. And I don't know if there are ways to participate more but still have that diffusing effect.
Yeah, great question. So the way that I always look at that is it comes back to desire. What is it that you want? So if you want to watch General Conference, why do you want to watch it, right? What is the reasoning? If you don't know what you want, you're not going to be able to create the experience there, right? So that's, again, are we just reacting to the environment around us, or are we getting more intentional in how we're navigating it? Which again comes back to what we were talking about before about diffusing it or honing in on things. It's less about when I'm in this environment, I react this way, more about when I feel this way, I choose to respond in this way because I want this end result, right? So we become more of that discipline over our body, our energy, how we feel, how we experience, rather than just reacting. And it takes time to practice that, and it takes time to build that up. It's, again, all a momentum thing. So one of the most powerful things you can do is, if you know there's something that's traditionally an activating experience for you coming up, spending time building up your positive momentum is really, really good, because you want to, outside of the experience, be feeling good, be thinking positive, practicing that experience around it. And it's not, again, sometimes when I say that, like, thinking positive, it's like, oh, I'm just setting my hopes up so that then when I watch, I have this bigger crash afterwards, right? That's not the point of this. It doesn't even have to be related to General Conference. It can be, I'm playing with my kids, I'm going on a walk, I'm making some really good food. It's you feeling good and being in that state of alignment that builds up that momentum, so that then you can carry it in, and it becomes, instead of how much can I bear this of what's going on until I have to leave, it's how long can I keep that positive momentum with me regardless of what's going on around you. And so it becomes, instead of like an exercise in forcing yourself to sit through something that you maybe don't want to, or that is difficult and reaches that point of like, I'm not doing this, like, why would I torture myself? It becomes an exercise in practicing, oh, how long can I hold my own centeredness? Okay. I love to talk about the idea of our pillar self rather than our walled self. And oftentimes we go into our walled, sheltered mode of like, I need protection, I need to keep myself guarded from this thing because it hurts and it's harmful. That's like a cast. And sometimes we need that cast while we're healing, while we're processing through stuff. Absolutely. Step away, set boundaries, do the things that you need to. But my goal and intention is always to get to that pillar presence where I can go and be around anything and anyone, and that doesn't shake the core presence of who I am. Because what's really happening when you're showing up is there's a battle going on of, this is what I think and feel. This is who I feel like I am. I feel threatened in some way by that. And I'm not sure that I can really be that it's not this, who I am is not okay. So we want to practice that presence of, I can just hold this, I can hold this, hold this.
I love that term, pillar presence, because with this whole topic, it's more that I feel if I get to the root of it, and like the internal, not that I'm letting go of the external like frustrations and focusing more internal. It's ultimately that I feel saddened, that I feel like so many people are missing, and not maybe people who are already in the church or people who would find fulfillment from knowing about her and how much healing that would bring to people's lives. And so the pillar presence helps me remember that this is important to me because of my relationship with her and the way that who I believe her to be. And it's not, I don't think she demands to be heard. I don't think, and so when I'm focusing on the external, it's because I'm feeling like, oh, well, isn't this how it should be, and what's right, and what's almost like justified, like it's, but then flipping that to internal is making it more clean and clear.
I love what you said there too. I don't know that sorry about that. I don't know that I've ever quite even thought about it as well as you put it. Like, you phrased it in a different way for me that hit so beautifully of when we think about Heavenly Mother, that presence of like, that's so cute that you guys think that you can minimize me, take away from me, use my voice. Like, what mom is going to sit there and look at her child and be like, yeah, that's cute, right? Like, there's absolutely ways that she shows up, that she connects, that she talks with people no matter what, and always has throughout human history, no matter what barriers, blocks, personal things we may have that get in the way that can create this appearance of minimizing or shutting away or whatever. That's a perfect example of that pillar presence of, you can react, you can respond, you can do or be or say anything that you want. It does not change who I am. It does not change how I show up. It does not change how I feel about you. That is that ultimate presence of sovereignty, of divinity, of Godhood that I feel like we are practicing here, that we came to have those experiences so that we could learn to understand, oh, this is who I am. This is what that core bit of me is. And this is how I can hold that. And I can practice being in that space and showing up with that and being in a relationship and connecting and not losing that essence.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just having epiphanies and chills because it's so beautiful, because the desire for her is what's leading me to learn how to become more like her. And I've thought that, the desire for her is that so everyone knows and talks about her, but that's not what it's about. My internal becoming, and all of us on an individual level. So it's just such a beautiful, it just feels so, really, it feels like that is her presence and her way. It's one-on-one, personal, intimate.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, that's one of, there we go. Okay. For me, that's one of the ways that I love reframing all of this. Is it's so easy to look at like, these are the results or the experiences I want to be having, and they matter, right? Whether it's your personal life, your relationship with your kids, your spouse, like, I want to be able to feel this way. I want to be able to communicate easier. I want the toilet training done. I want to not yell at my kids. I want to have heavenly parents be spoken of and shared, and people to understand the significance and the meaning of that and bring that into people's lives, right? Whatever that thing is, of course it matters. But when we can get into a space of acknowledging it's about the process, it's about the becoming, that's the whole point. And this is just like the vehicle or the thing to help us do that. Right. And so then instead of looking at my laundry list of all the frustrating things of like, oh, this needs to change in the church, this needs to change, this hurts, this is damaging, I don't like this, blah, 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 whatever. It's like, okay, I've got clarity around where I want to go. And I've got lots of clarity around where we are right now. And I can look at that gap between those two things and be like, oh, we are never getting anywhere. It feels like that gap just gets bigger and bigger. I don't know how to deal with that gap. I don't know how to manage that gap. Or instead of making it about the things, make it about the process of becoming. So the same way you are going through this experience individually, potentially with your spouse, with your family, it's creating that ripple effect on all these different layers of you are becoming something more. So your relationships are becoming something more, and it's experiencing. And the same thing is happening on a system level with the organization, right? The leaders have to go through their own experiences. But I don't even like necessarily tapping into that space because it often can feel like, okay, but they're old, they're set in their ways, they're not going to change, that's not going to happen. So if we have to wait for that, like we're going to be waiting forever type of thing. It's much more beautiful for me to look at the system as an entity, as like a being in and of itself. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has its own identity, it has its own purpose, it has its own roles and impact, and it's going through that same process of discovering who am I, how do I want to show up in the world, what are the ways I want to impact things, and it's an ever-evolving becoming. And so instead of looking at this is the flaws and this is all the problems, it's the same way if you go up to a person or yourself and you're talking to yourself and being like, these are all of the problems and all the flaws and all the things that need to change, it would like shut down the energy pretty fast, right? But when you can see a problem and you can go, oh, I don't like that. I want to experience something different. I want to change the way I show up. I want to be in a different place. Then it's about that becoming experience again. And so, again, shifting that focus from the results and where we are and that like tug of war in the gap to what is the journey for you? Who are you becoming? In what ways are you experiencing that? How are you seeing that becoming happen for others? And then how are you seeing that show up as the organization is becoming? Cool. Okay. Well, I have loved this conversation. I would love to continue with you more, but I'm on my husband's phone and he needs it, so I'm going to have to hop off, but I loved it. Thank you for joining me. Awesome. If anyone has other questions or things you want to talk about, we'll be doing a few more of these going on. So if you want to hop on next time, let me know. It's wonderful to have you here, and good luck with everything. More tips and stuff. Stay tuned. Okay.
Why would you grab them? This is softest going down.
Yeah.
For the first time in years, their stock is going down following their shareholder meeting.
Wow.
Even though the market was going up.
Oh my goodness.
So
I couldn't.
And they got called out in some of the proposals that shareholders put out. They were like anti-trans proposals. They were like anti-woke proposals. And of course, so they had the proposals they have to read out loud. And I mean, they called out this in the proposal. The trans Disney is pushing this thing that it's doing live. This organization is saying this organization that I personally suffered because of people who strategy and Disney pushing that thing. We need to go against pushing these things. Disney board, like it just comes off so bad. is going down. This has not happened. Every time after these shareholder meetings, the stock went up. Even when the news was all like bad news, and it was like, this is clearly what bad news, and you hear a thing they said, the stock went down. Well, on the other proposal, they called for that. You have exploited the brand, you have exploited your customer, and they were the new one that has it material, and the middle, also by negative, a quote in the proposal. And they had to read it out loud and be like, you live ignore it because you don't have this. And of course, like, well, the full book has to move on. It doesn't hear that. Disney board's recommendation for board members has overwhelmingly people helps trans and blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting here like,
right, YouTube. Apparently, I forgot this stream was still going. I'll say goodbye now.